Today's topic is going to be the genocide in Gaza, the American complicity with the Jewish war crimes. And I guess I should say Israeli war crimes, as it is the state of Israel that is doing this. It's appalling. It is so catastrophic that people don't even want to turn on the news anymore. It doesn't even come up on the first page of the CBC internet news channel. It's ignoring this problem is not going to make it go away. Finally, Mark Carney has called Israel's denial of humanitarian aid a violation of international law. It's already the end of July. This has been going on for over a year and a half, and Canada is finally saying something. Now, saying something and doing something are totally different things. Canada should where are the sanctions? Where is the condemnation? Like where is Canada doing anything other than making an announcement at this late date when it's obvious to the entire world what's happening?
Well, you got Starmer in Great Britain there with a lot of his MPs wanting to do it, but there's still resistance to announce that Palestinian should be a state. Palestine should be a state. Macron has said he's going to join Sweden, I believe Ireland, in declaring that Palestine is a state. Those are steps in the right direction for a two-state solution. But allowing Israel to be the martial law to annihilate and commit genocide is not the way to solve the problem in my books. And I think the world needs to see that this is war crimes that have to be stopped immediately.
Well, the Al Jazeera reports that every single person in Gaza is starving. That's
Yeah,
over 2 million people starving.
yeah.
And
There was hundreds of kids in the hospitals or whatever you call care centers in the Gaza Strip that are starving or going to die from starvation. That's that's not acceptable at all. I mean, they've been at war for how long have they invaded Gaza? They've wiped out most of the Hamas that were claimed to be their enemy, and there are much better ways than using human bait traps where they're lining up for humanitarian aid and then being shot or killed or bombed while they're in the lineup waiting for aid. That is not acceptable behavior in today's world.
it's beyond the pale. If you look at Nazi Germany in the 40s, the average German citizen may have had some plausible deniability that they did not know that there was death camps. Their neighbors were just disappearing and not coming back, and who knows what the cover story was. It was possible that some people didn't know. It is impossible for almost anybody in the world today who has any connection to airwaves, radio, internet, TV, not to know what the Israelis are doing to the people in Gaza. It's appalling. Everybody must know, and nobody is doing anything. Where are the sanctions? There's 18 rounds of sanctions against Russia. 18
Yeah,
rounds. Nothing against Israel. Not even talking about sanctions against Israel. It's
I mean,
insane.
the DPA International just 4 hours ago did a story where the title is 16 Gazans shot dead while waiting for aid, say Palestinian medics. So while they're waiting for aid, soldiers walked up and killed 16 people that were seeking humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip. That is unacceptable. These are unarmed people seeking aid. That is war crimes. People have to be held accountable. They were also saying that a further 300 people were injured at the same event. That's not a policing operation. That's not a military operation. That's a genocide operation to get rid of people. You don't shoot somebody with a white flag surrendering. Yet here we are in a humanitarian aid lineup, which is like waving a white flag saying, I need help. And then you're totally going out of your way to make sure they're dead. That is not something that you should be proud of. It's something that the U.S. citizens that have Trump backing Netanyahu should be appalled at, for this uncaring of human life, when the solution is to recognize Palestine as a state and come up with a two-state solution. The two-state solution in Canada, Carney should be stepping up and saying, look, Palestine is a state. We're sending in our policing units, we're sending in our peacekeepers, and we're going to help rebuild Palestine. That, with the aid of the United Kingdom, France, you can forget any assistance from the U.S., but we need to move in those troops just like they did in Croatia and Serbia to restart peaceful conduct in a war-torn zone, and that is something we can do, and we don't have to ask permission from the Israelis. The Palestinian state can ask for our help, and we should, as humanitarians, walk in and say we will put what's needed in place to create the two-state solution. That's what true leaders do in a world that is being dominated by criminal elements running countries like Israel and the U.S. Both Netanyahu and Trump have something in common. They're both being investigated for fraud. They're both known to have aided and abetted in war crimes in Gaza. And it is nothing more and nothing less than complete genocide is the program. That has to be stopped by strong leadership in all countries. France has stepped up. Macron has stepped up and said he's announcing Palestinian state and going to recognize it. That's a step in the right direction because they are a world power. And when you join Sweden and Spain and Ireland in these other countries that have recognized the Palestinian state, that's a step in the right direction, and we cannot allow war crimes to continue there. Even if it means putting our own people, our peacekeepers in harm's way, we can form a human barrier between the two fractions and cause peace in the Middle East. That's my rant.
I don't think you need peacekeepers. You just need to get the Israelis out and have them stop drone strikes and bombing runs.
I don't think
Overnight,
you're going to do that unless you put a police force in and say, we're taking over policing the situation, and anybody committing any crimes will be dealt with equally. The Israelis aren't going to move out because they've been empowered by Trump, and Trump wants his, beachfront development. So you're not going to see him back down anytime soon from backing Israelis.
well, overnight they struck a tent, killed several people, including a journalist. So they intentionally go after journalists because they do not want the news of what they're doing to be exposed any more than it already is.
Yeah.
Like it's and every time they commit a war crime, they say, "Oh, it was a mistake, and we're investigating." How could you make a mistake of uh, uh, shooting up, emergency vehicles, murdering
No, it's
you know
intentional.
the drivers, and then burying them in a hole in the desert, and saying you don't know anything about it for 4 or 5 days until somebody goes out and digs up the hole and finds the evidence.
Then you got to laugh. It's so ridiculous. Trump saying, "Oh, there's going to be no peace over there because Hamas won't negotiate." Hamas can't really negotiate. There's not much left of Hamas from what I see. And Hamas sends somebody up to negotiate. Guess what? Their family and they disappear. So you can't tell me that there's going to be any negotiation when there's genocide occurring and elimination of anybody that says, hey, we want to step up and try to make a peaceful resolution, and then the people will just disappear because the Israelis will take care of the problem. It's a genocide, it's war crimes. And to initiate a peace, you have to have equal desire for peace, and that's not the case. It's total domination. Israelis believe that if they take over and push the people out of Gaza, that they can make peace by having a new land development deals going down. And that seems to be what the issue is they want the population to be never wanting to go back to Gaza. They want them to exodus the area, and if they don't leave, then starve to death. And that's what I see. I might be wrong, but when the writing's on the wall and everything points to killing off the population, that's genocide. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't
You
know
know,
what the solution is, but Palestinian
well,
state recognition is one solution and one step in the right direction.
well, I think what they need to do is they have to start looking at who is committing the war crimes, and you have to believe that the military officers who are conducting these operations know what they're doing. You have to assume that they're just following orders is going to be their defense. Well, it didn't work for the Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shouldn't work for the Israelis.
Well,
You
it
can't
works for the
say,
Israelis because Trump is backing the Israelis. And Trump has no regard for law or genocide. He only sees that if you don't do as I tell you, then the Israelis will wipe you out of the existence. And, like he said, he's more than willing to build real estate development for the rich right on the beachfront property. And to him, that's a better deal than having starving people hanging around bothering them. So, yeah, it's aiding and abetting war crimes is also a crime. And let's hold these countries accountable. Even the U.S. should be brought before the UN on war crime aiding and abetting with the Israelis. And not to mention not providing the authorized aid to Ukraine so that Putin can continue killing civilians. He's targeting civilians. So these are the things that having Trump as the leader of the U.S. is being allowed to happen. I mean, in his first term, Trump was the first country, I believe, to recognize that the West Bank was now belonging to the Israelis or not West Bank, the Golan Heights belonged to the Israelis, and that was in his first term. He was the first country to do that, and the Israelis loved it because now they had clear title to the Golan Heights, which was a contested area with Syria. And Trump is following through on Gaza in the same manner as Golan Heights, where he's going to recognize that it belongs to the Israelis and do with what you will, as long as he gets his beachfront hotel complex, golf course, resort, whatever he wants. That's corruption. But what's new?
you're not allowed to shoot a deer at a salt lake. But the Israelis have killed over 800 Palestinians trying to get aid. They have to line up. They get enclosed in tents, in fences. They have to walk for miles, and the Israelis are even using tank rounds on them.
Yeah.
It's absolutely criminal, and everybody knows it's criminal. And know what our government's going to do? Our foreign minister is going to attend a two-state solution conference in New York.
Yeah.
Like where are the sanctions?
Yeah,
You just say that,
let's go to the country that's allowing the annihilation and genocide and see if we can negotiate a deal. That's ridiculous. Cut the U.S. right off at the knees and have nothing to do with them or Israel, and let the UN and countries of the willing develop a plan. And on that, Israelis have said, hey, we'll allow airdropping of food supplies into Gaza now. So Of course, Starmer and UK and France are all looking at airdropping food supplies into the Gaza Strip, which,
They killed people last time when they did that.
yeah,
They dropped.
exactly. So
But
it's
here's the thing: our foreign minister and 24 other counterparts uh, are signed a joint statement calling the distribution of the food dangerous and asserting the war on Gaza must end now. Hey, that's all hot air. You
well.
know,
They also said that
where's
the
the
reason
sanctions? Where's
food
the
isn't
truth?
distributed is Hamas is preventing the people in Gaza from getting the food. Well, if Hamas is the ones that are distributing the food, you know who Hamas is, and that isn't true. That's a propaganda stunt by the Israelis and Trump to say that it's all Hamas's fault that the food isn't getting into the Gaza Strip. Bullshit. It ain't getting in because the Israelis aren't allowing the food in, period. And when the food is, it's used as bait to draw out people so they can shoot and kill them. That's not acceptable. That's ridiculous. To even think that that's realistic, that the Hamas is not distributing food. No, the food distribution is from the Israelis and allowing international relief to do their job of distribution of the food, and the international relief isn't getting the food to distribute. So they're not run by Hamas. So let's cut the bullshit.
Yeah, I, I'm just appalled at the lack of response from Canada. There should be a blanket embargo on Israel. Canada should say we're not allowing any Israeli products into Canada. We're not allowing any products from Canada to go into Israel. This has to stop. And until the world starts to actually put some action behind the words, it'll never stop. Like you can huff and you can puff all you want. You're not going to blow over the Israeli genocide machine. It needs it needs to be starved, and the United States has to get on board. Obviously, they're the ones that are feeding the machine, but we should at least bring charges. Start a hearing in Canada. You know,
Well,
uh,
why not?
uh,
I mean,
yeah.
the other countries in the world, like why is Scotland allowing Trump to come visit in Scotland? I mean, shouldn't you put he's a felon? You know, why was he allowed to come into Canada? Just because he's the leader of a country doesn't mean he should be given special rights to go around the world and instigate and feed genocide and these ulterior motives of his. We should, as a world, say no. You, U.S., you wanted him to lead you. You keep him in your boundary, and we don't want felons and potential pedophiles coming to our country ever. And that takes leadership. And we do not have leadership when you allow a criminal felon to come into your country when you have laws against felons coming into your country, especially a vocal felon that says any immigrant coming into his country is a felon just by the fact that he's an immigrant and they're deporting them to concentration camp. You shouldn't allow that person to travel into your country. Scotland, I'm ashamed of you for even allowing Trump to go in there. That's pathetic. You should, never allow a felon, don't care who he is, into your country and make a big press release that he's coming to visit you. Scotland, I'm ashamed to say I even have Scottish heritage because you're letting that felon into your country. Well, that's another rant, but you get the
So
point.
the Israelis argue that there is no food shortages in Gaza. They say that there are some areas, pockets that have issues of access to food, but they're denying the starvation. The individual in charge of the coordination of government activities in the territories who said that should be charged with war crimes. The evidence
Exactly.
the evidence is that they are starving. To deny it,
Well, they're in the
and
hospital, hundreds of young kids in the hospital. That's starvation. I mean, and they're dying from it.
one of the governmental agencies over there claims that the problem is with the United Nations not distributing the food and allowing it to rot in the sun. Israelis radio recently reported the Israeli army has burned or buried some 1,000 trucks worth of aid because they say it's spoiled or expired. Now, you
Yeah,
think the people in Gaza care if it's past the best before date? You know,
yeah.
if your crackers are a month old, you know, it's awful. Then the spokesperson for Netanyahu's office told the BBC that the UN in Gaza is $1 billion racket
Mm.
and accused the UN of working with Hamas to restrict aid to its own people. Like these people need to be smartened up, and I think a hearing in The Hague, in front of 13 international judges may just be what they need in order to see the reality of what it is that they are doing. And until that happens,
Well,
nothing's going to change.
well, that article that I mentioned 4 hours ago, it says over 100 people have already died of malnutrition in Gaza, and 80% of them were children, according to local health authorities. Israeli denies that there is a famine in the Gaza Strip.
Hey, here's another one. Addressing the UN Security Council, Israel's ambassador accused UN aid chief Tom Fletcher as somehow being affiliated with Hamas. They make these wild allegations that people believe. Like, in the initial incident, they said they were cutting the heads off of babies and frying them in ovens,
Yeah.
and things like that. And it doesn't have a reality to it. The reality is they're in charge of who gets in or out of Gaza. They're in charge of who gets the food, and they are intentionally starving people to death.
Well,
That's
they said there was
that's
100 trucks of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip on Friday. UN organizers distribute the goods, Kogat said.
there's 2 million.
This is that same article. But in recent weeks, the UN says only a few aid convoys have reached the area. For Gaza to receive adequate supplies, at least 500 trucks a day would be needed. So those numbers show you that there is starvation, because there are quite a few people in Gaza that need food, and you can't supply them with minimum amounts that may or may not be actually distributed, because the Israelis won't allow it to happen. And when you have 100 people dying of starvation, that is only going to get worse. There are approximately 2 million Palestinians in the region. And if you think 100 truckloads of food would feed 2 million people, you have to get your brains examined. Of course there isn't enough food. Like they said, 500 trucks a day to supply 2 million people. So I guess it goes back to controlling the media and killing off the press is definitely a Trump-style facade of hiding the war crimes and everything, and Netanyahu is following the Trump playbook on media redirection and suppression. So,
Well, if you look at the example in Iran, they're in the middle of negotiations. The International Atomic Energy Program has identified all the main scientists, their families, and where they live.
yeah,
And out of nowhere, they assassinate the scientists, kill their families along with them. They kill the negotiators, and they bomb the facilities.
yeah.
Surprise attack, and for which they pound their chests and say, "What a great job we did." And you're thinking, where? How can you expect anybody to talk to you
No,
and have negotiations with you if you're the next target?
they're
And
they're they've already demonstrated they're untrustworthy. Trump is untrustworthy. He's not a negotiator. You don't turn your back on a sociopath. psychopath, whatever you want to call them. You cannot expect Hamas or the Palestinians to ever negotiate, because they will be assassinated or dealt with in some manner. Iran was in the same boat. Iran was cooperating with the nuclear bodies. They had 2 weeks before the bombings been still allowed to go into the nuclear facility and monitor what was going on. So all this propaganda and false news boils back to the lack of credible journalism in the world now, and lies dominate regimes committing crimes. So we need to do something on that level too.
And the other thing is too, if you say anything against the reality, you'll get labeled anti-Semitic. They'll say that for whatever reason, the fact that you've made this comment is against Israel. It's
Well,
against genocide. It's against starvation. It's against war
doesn't
crimes. It
I
doesn't
don't
matter
care
who's
who
doing
you
it.
are or what you are. If
Yeah.
you're committing genocide, you're going to be called out, and don't hide behind some shield of protection that is a fallacy. If you're the ones committing the genocide, your history means nothing. Right now, today, if you're committing genocide, you should be held account. And there's no excuse for it, and there's no excuse for the UN and the free countries of the world not opposing it, period. Lest you be the next country that experiences it.
Well, it already Syria, Lebanon, Iran. But here's the thing as well. They're building a concentration camp to hold 600,000 people. How
Yeah,
how can anybody look at that and say, well, I guess it's the same concentration camp as the Gaza Strip is, except smaller, and we let them do that for 70 years, so we might as well let them have their own little smaller concentration camp. Like it's insane, absolutely insane.
yeah. I think that area, like Israelis, give your head a check. I mean, what you're doing is war crimes and genocide, and there's no amount of excuses for it. And I don't know how the people of Israel even allow it, especially with their previous history of being the persecuted. So I
There,
don't know.
there's probably a Holocaust museum shrine exhibit in every country in the world,
Yeah,
and there's numerous of them in Canada. And anybody that looks at what happened there can see a direct relationship to what is happening in Gaza.
yeah.
It's a direct parallel. You have a bully that's armed, that's herding people into concentration camps, starving them to death, and shooting them. Now they may not be using a gas chamber, but what's the difference if you're dropping a 500-pound bomb on a tent? Like it's insane.
Well, I think we got to sit back and watch it happen, because we have no power to make changes other than speaking about it and asking for people to step up and put pressure on your MLAs, your MPs to act. That's all
You know,
we
there's
can do.
there's a significant number of people that I know that refuse to even think about it,
Yeah.
and they think the reality is that there's nothing they can do about it, so they're not going to worry about it. And because they think there's nothing they can do about it, they're not even going to talk about it. They're not going to read about it. They're not going to take any action. They're not going to
And
contact
I
their
can
MP.
understand that. It's frustration that you have no say or no power. And I mean, you're just one of 8 billion people on the face of the earth. I get it. But, you know, you do make a difference. One person, one voice, one vote still impacts what's going to happen, because turning a blind eye is not a solution to anything.
Well, you're going to become a party to the wrong side of history if you don't at least speak up and write your MP and do whatever is necessary, send letters to the editors and ask them why this information is not on in their newspapers. And if you look at the Canadian coverage, it's appalling, and it's partially due to the ownership of the newspapers. Obviously,
Yes, and it's a hidden agenda of the media, and guess what? Money owns the media, and money tells what's going to be printed. So we have to really have a look at what capitalism really is, and is capitalism pro-democracy? And I say no, it's suppression so that a few get all the rewards, and those few depict how countries and politics and genocide are going to be conducted around the world. And if the money is running all the media and running the whole world affairs, then we really have to look at it as a problem. Look at the U.S. Trump is in because of money, Musk's money, other billionaires' money, and look what he's doing for the order of law and justice and crimes and all sorts of stuff that you would have never thought could have happened 30 years ago. So, we'd have to reevaluate how we want the world to move forward. And that talking about it is only part of it. As podcasters and people with desire for change, we have to start writing and building blueprints for the future. And that's something like I plan on, putting blueprints together, saying this is things that we can do meaningfully as a move forward strategy to improve the world. Watch for it. It's coming. I've been working on it. And hopefully, talk is cheap unless you got a great plan to follow up with it. That's my take.
Well, on that note,
Okay.
should wrap it up.
Okay,
So
take care.
if you hit the subscribe button on the bottom of your screen, it doesn't cost you anything. And what it does is it raises the algorithm a little bit so that it in a small way it helps get messages out that you're not going to see in other in other outlets.
Yeah,
Press the
please hit
subscribe.
subscribe, and like I said, it helps the algorithm and helps us. So thank you. Okay,
Good day.
take care. Bye.
Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and please share the video. Don't be afraid to share this commercial with your friends too.